Symbolic meaning, all these things that happen, it's very, very important. Every lady wants to have a meaningful relationship with somebody that can satisfy her and someone she can understand she's satisfied. I mean, who doesn't? Different people may think you got only one person for your whole life. Maybe you're supposed to have multiple partners. These are age old situations we have to deal with. But I've got this problem. So at some point, I started doing some things. And I actually have a video on my YouTube channel about how I talked early on about how my LLC, among other things, was going to be involved with attempting to make some natural products. I made some essential oils. I'm doing it my own way, right? But this thing keeps happening where you don't want the rose, you want the rosebud. You want it before it's able to flower. You want it while it's still a potential, a promise of a bloom. You don't want to wait for it to bloom. You want to pick it before it's even bloomed and make some justification that, well, because it's not in bloom, I can have the potential. The promise is for me. Unfortunately, at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, there were a lot of moments of this sort. There was an actually early bloom in rose bushes around where I live, but there was a very serious matter that it was anticipated and understood that there was a projection on that first fruits. I have a number of jars of oil going all the way back to December of 2020. Different stages. I have 3 different stages. I'm going to let you know some of this is absolutely exquisite. It's incredibly disappointing to think until this time there's no one with whom to share it. It is very disturbing, actually, because I know that what you wanted was to get rid of those blooms so that you could get all the rosebuds. You wanted their promise and their potential before they even knew what it was like to bloom, and something very disturbing has happened. Many of those rose bushes, they didn't survive. It wasn't because I picked too many roses that were mature. That's not what it was it? You went after their roots. And what? Did you get something of your own and decide to graft it so that you would have an inexhaustible supply of rose buds? Do you find rosebud oil to be more alluring than after the rose has opened up and absorbed the sun and been able to maybe get to know some pollinators, maybe actually live, actually breathe, actually have a life, actually have something to offer it could give you? Or do you prefer to get it before it opens so that you can squeeze what it could have been and give it to what? To whom? How long does it take for you to prepare a rosebud oil for the market? See, the conditions have to be right in order for this to be successful. I already know what I have. The problem is, you keep wanting something that's not available. And so what is available? What ends up happening? Are we going to have another round where somebody is going to mourn the loss of very ample, abundant womanhood of one form because somebody wants them to understand that all of their potential is supposed to belong to her or him. You needed to wait for the flower to bloom. You needed to wait for the petals to unfurl. Now, I've got what I've got, right? I've got a number of it. And I also have magnolias. I got you wouldn't believe it. It's unbelievable. You wouldn't believe what I have. And I know, right? You want to make some sort of excuse about how I have to do some things or I haven't been doing my job, or that's not true. You were dishonest. You intentionally engaged me in deceit. You watch what I do electronically and think that you're entitled to divest me from anything that could yield from that. I don't let you in my room for a fucking reason. But I also have another jar, a special jar. Why? Because this jar is different. In this jar is a blend. The other ones, they haven't been blended. There's only 2 or 3 jars. I put some blends together, one of which is in its second pressing, right? The rest of them, I just keep it as it is. Because once it's ready, then it can decide what it wants to do. It's not my place to come up with some concoction. Except for this one. This one here has my first fruits from the winter storm. Do you remember the winter storm here in Texas? The one that had been specifically and strategically, premeditatedly planned exactly 6 months before the declaration of the state of emergency. Do you remember that? Literally, exactly when they said it was going to happen, it happened. Presumably, there was a huge cold front from the Arctic. It moved all the way down to Texas. Snow, ice. Somehow during this time frame, somebody bought me a rose bush. Right before the snow and ice. What am I going to do with a rose bush? I can't plant it while there's snow and ice outside. It had been in its original packaging. The electricity went off. It was freezing. But every once in a while, for maybe an hour or 2 at a time, electricity would come on. So for a couple of days after I planted it in some soil and kept it inside, as warm as I could, whenever the electricity came on, I would boil a pot of water. And I would pour the water in so that the water, after it had been boiled, would be heated up to keep the plant from freezing. Plant didn't die. Plant's having quite a story right now, right? You see, in some manner I could say, some old man says, this plant is for you, and something's happening, and it's cold outside. Can you help take care of the plant? And I did. And now we've got what we've got with the plant. But, intention. Somebody gives you something, they have an ulterior purpose. They expect something back. I wasn't raised that way. But that's where I am. You want the first fruits. I don't do rosebuds. Right? There were 3 flowers that came up on that plant. It took a while. I made a notation about the first 3 flowers. They were beautiful. They're in this jar. There's also a magnolia. And there's also the first pepper. See, there was a pepper plant at the same time. There's other things in this jar as well. I've had it on my altar. I haven't opened it. Would you consider this property? Would you consider it real estate? Would it be eligible for demurrage charges? Do you want to buy my property?